he has been connected to some awfully problematic situations around the world. But one of the things I always like about your books is they make me take a second look at things that I may have thought one way about, and about some of the strategic recommendations and decisions that he was involved with. You write the following: arguments that focus on loss of life in strategically marginal countries, and there is no other way of describing Argentina, Bangladesh, Cambodia, Chile, Cyprus, and East Timor, must be tested against this question. How, in each case, would an alternate decision have affected U.S. relations with strategically important countries like the Soviet Union, China, and the major Western European powers? Clearly, he came to the conclusion that it was okay to deal with that first group of countries in such a way that kept the eyes on the prize, which were the second group of countries. How about you? Do you come to the conclusion that that was a price worth paying?
Well, that's really the question that Volume 2 will be about, and I don't prejudge it.
Okay.
I merely say that that's the right kind of question to ask about a national security strategy. As I'm starting to write Volume 2, I'm going to try and set the scene. The position of the United States in January 1969 was not an enviable one in many ways. They had inherited a disastrous mess from Lyndon Johnson, and not only in Vietnam. By contrast, the Soviet Union was riding high and making gains in a lot of what we used to call the Third World. I think one has to see Kissinger working with Nixon, who was, after all, the president, to devise a strategy that would get the United States out of at least some of the mess that it was in. And in order to achieve that outcome, in order, for example, to get out of Vietnam with, as they hoped, honor, the priority had to be on relations with the Soviets. The opening to China in 1972, probably the most important thing Kissinger did in his entire career, was really about trying to enhance the position of the United States and to improve it after 1969, and in many ways it's hugely successful. Now, in order to achieve those breakthroughs, another breakthrough would be the Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty. In order to achieve what was achieved in the Middle East, other countries came lower down the list of priorities. Kissinger, even before he entered government, understood something important about foreign policy. Most of the choices are between evils. You don't get many touchy-feely options. And I think that's an important way to think about the problem of foreign policy. You can't treat each case on its own merit. This is not like being a lawyer. You have to realize that all these cases are connected, and your strategy has somehow to exploit the linkages between them. You can only do this if you make priorities. You can only do this if you establish what really matters and recognize that there will be compromises, very major compromises of your principles in pursuit of the strategy. Kissinger says that explicitly in 1957 in a book called Nuclear Weapons and Foreign Policy. And I think one of the troubles we have when we talk about US foreign policy to this day is that we just want there to be case-by-case discussions, and we just want to be able to imagine happy parallel universes in which you please all the people all the time and nobody gets hurt. But that's just not the way the world works. Ask President Obama. Ask him, how is it going in Egypt with the military aid that you're giving to the military regime, to the dictator that overthrew the democratically elected President Mohamed Morsi? That situation, which is happening right now in real time in the Middle East, is identical to the situation in Chile in 1973. And if we're going to judge Chile to have been a crime of some kind, then we have to admit that the same crime is being perpetrated in Egypt by Barack Obama's administration.